Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to start this class right away. We've met the minimum number of people who are supposed to join for us to start the class. So this is a class 2 of Python programming. If you missed the first class, you can watch it. I recorded the whole class, I redid it, and I posted it. So if you never found the link for you to have that flow of what this program offers, you can still request for the link, and I'm going to share it to you. It is available and it contains the whole notes for the first class. So this is our second class. It's not going to take time. We are already 14 minutes past our normal time that the class is supposed to start. Uh, Today we are going to talk about something called the control flow. So I told you by the time we're going to be, and that is by next week, because every week we're supposed to be having 3 classes. By next week, we are going to have covered 7 to 8 classes. And I was telling you that the moment you attend the first 9 classes, you are good to go. You've already mastered the basics of Python programming. Python programming is all about introduction. You have to understand how codes are written. You have to understand let me admit someone. You have to understand the flow of the code. So by next week, because this week we are going to have 3 classes. By next week, we are going to have our 7th class. So by the time you're going to cover our 8th or 9th class, you'll be good to go. Even though this course is supposed to have a total of 16 classes. So the first 9 classes are going to talk about the syntax of the code, how to start Python programming, how to start writing the codes and all that. And that is the most important part. It is not about writing very many lines of code. It is about understanding what you are writing. And for you to understand what type of code you are writing, it all starts from the basics of Python programming. The moment you understand what Python requires, you're good to go. So I'm going to start this class. Today we are going to talk about control flow, and under control flow we are going to look in 2 things. The first thing we're going to check today is something we call the conditional statement. Conditional statement, and the second thing we are going to check is what we call the loops. So allow me to start my PyCharm. That software you're supposed to have downloaded it. I already guided you guys. If you still have problem downloading PyCharm as a tool, you can always ask for assistance. But what I usually encourage that if you're attending classes, you have to see what is happening, observe keenly. If you can do a follow-up, then well and good, as long as it doesn't disrupt you. But it is advisable that because I usually record these classes, you can go and watch it later. Okay, you can go and watch it later again, and then you get to understand what was happening. So we are using PyCharm IDE for Python programming, a software that was developed by JetBrains. I'm also going to introduce you guys to Jupyter Notebook. It is another option for coding in Python. We can also use our Studio, the latest version, it supports it. And we can use the Visual Studio Code. We can also use the Visual Studio Code for that. But now I told you, because I find PyCharm to be friendly, then I'm going to be using PyCharm most of the time. But later on, I'm going to introduce you guys to Jupyter Notebook and maybe Visual Studio Code. The good thing is that the codes will change, but they're not going to change that much. So allow me to present my screen where we left from last time's class. And I was saying, if you are never last time's class, I always record all the classes. So the class is there. I recorded it. You can request for the link, and you're going to get it. So I'm going to share my PyCharm window, our IDE for Python programming class 2, and that is today. Okay, so let me share it where we just left from last time's class is Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so this window that appears is exactly where we left from our last class. So last time's class, we were literally checking about the basic introduction to Python and basic syntax. We checked the overview of Python and its uses. I explained it. We also checked the setting up of Python and IDE, that is PyCharm. I introduced you to the PyCharm tool. Then we checked the writing and running your first Python program as usual, that is a hello world. Then we checked the variables and data types. Uh, we checked the variable and data types, and that is very crucial. You have to master variable and data types in Python. We also checked the input and output, how to use the print function. And the last thing we checked last time is the basic arithmetic operators. So today our focus is on control flow, where we're going to check two things: conditional statements and loops. That is class 2. Under conditional statement and loops, we are going to check some functions such as the if, elif, and else statements. I'm going to show you what it means. So for me to make you guys understand, I'll be writing here. This is my PyCharm window. You can see it. So you all know the procedure of creating a new PyCharm file. You just come here under your project name. When you right click close to your project name, there's an option of new. So this new that appears, you can click on Python file for you to create a Python file. So I think it is a pop-up window, and sometimes Google Meet has limitation, but that is the procedure. The good thing is that I'm recording and I'll share the class. I advise you guys that this being the introduction part of Python, most of the times be keen observing what is happening. Then you can always watch the video later. So today, let me call this one the control flow. Let me name it control flow because that is what I want us to cover today. So you can see I've created a blank. There's something I need to check. So let me. Very nice. So here, I hope it is clear. In case of anything, you can just notify me via the in messages. So under the control flow, I said today we are going to check on. So let me just admit the person who is joining. Okay. We're going to check on the that is the control flow. So under control flow, so the moment I put a hashtag, I'm commenting that particular line to affect my code. So whenever I'll be running this file, it's not going to affect my code. So under control flow, we are interested to check something called the conditional statements and loops. This is for the. So here I'm going to talk about the if, elif, and something called the else. And these ones are called statements, right spelling. Then I'm going to check something called the relational and logical operators. So you can see it's bringing an error because this is an explanation. I should comment on it like this. This is the second thing. So when you comment, it means you don't want to run that line of code. The third thing I'm going to check on is called the for loops. Let's see it. The fourth thing I'm going to check is called the while. So we have the for loops. So the fifth thing I'm going to check today is called the break and continue statements. We'll see it. Then the last thing I'm going to check is which will go as an assignment most probably is what I call the nested loops and conditions. So today this is what you're going to check under the control flow, that is conditional and statements and loops. So I want you guys to be very keen on what's going to happen. It is very important. These are introduction classes. They are very crucial for your understanding of what Python programming entails. So let me start with the first thing, the if, elif, and under the else statement. So just from how it says, conditional statements allows the program to make decision based on a condition that you have set, you as the user. So the difference between the if, elif, and else statement is that the if statement checks if a condition is true and executes the block of code after the if statement. Okay, so it checks if a condition is true and execute the block of code. We shall see that. The elif, this one here is also known as it's just a short form. It's also known as the else if. So the else if statement will check additional condition if the first is false. Okay, so if the first one will always be an if, this one. So if this one is false and we have some other condition, the elif will continue to check other condition before executing the code. The else statement, this one, runs if none of the conditions are true. So that is the explanation of if, elif, and else. So else will run if none of the conditions are true. So if all of them are false, it's going to run. So these are things that I've been experiencing in a normal life, and I want to show you now how to do it. I'm going to start with the basic one, and the basic one is the if else, which is also known as the what? Sorry, which is also known as the elif. So let's start. So that is the first thing we're going to do. So let me say I want to set my age. What we are going to cover today is going to be more of what we covered last time. How to print, how to assign. See, that's what we are going to be doing today. So that's why if there in the first class there's a video, I recorded the whole class, so you can do a follow and you can go and watch the video because it's going to help you get to understand easily what we are doing in our second class. So here, I want to create a variable called the age, and age I want to assign it into an integer. Remember, integers under data types. That's why I told you variables and data types are key for your understanding in Python programming. So age is an integer because it takes values like 34, 35, and 39. So I want to write a simple if-else statement that allows the user to input the age. So it's going to be an integer. So I want to limit my variable called age to allow integers only. And after allow integers, the next function I'm going to call is the input function. Remember, the input function prompts the user to insert a value that is required. So I'm going to ask a user question for the user to be able to enter what I require. So this question must be in double quotes. Let me put quotes and your age, something like that. So after the user enters the age, I'm going to run my if statement. How? So I'm going to test if age, remember this age is a variable that the user enters at this first line of code. So if age is equals to, let me say, is greater than or equal to, if age is greater than or equal to 18, I'm going to print a statement saying are an adult. Okay? Otherwise, what if the age the user has inputted is not greater than or equal to 18? This is where else comes. So otherwise, if the user is not greater than or equal to 18, I'm supposed to print something else. Okay? So I'm going to else. Remember from the explanation of if and else if. Else will always test a function if the first one is not true. Okay, so if this one is not true, I want to run another test and say else print you are not an adult. Of course, it should be in double quotes because this is something to be printed. You are not an adult. So let me write correct spelling adult yet. So this is my function here. So I have age. I want the user to input age as an integer. So I'm asking the user to enter the age. So after the user enters the age, if age is greater than or equal to 18, I'm going to print you are an adult. Otherwise, else, if the user is less than 18, it's going to appear you are not an adult. So let's run and get to see what happens. So run is here. You just click to run. You can see here it's coming under the output here. Age. Let me enter an age like 35. Adult. What if this one and I try to run again, then we put an age that is less than 18. So enter your age 12. Enter. You are not an adult yet. So you can see else has run because the first statement has been false. So the second statement had to run. So that is how the if and else will work. Then remember, so here I've shown you how to use if and else. I want to show you how to use elif. So I'll just create a new file. That is simple. The reason for creating many files is to avoid confusion. So you just right click on your project. I'm sure it's not appearing on your side because this is a pop-up window and a Google Meet limits pop-up windows. Then I create a Python file. So let me call it elif. You can see I've created a blank page here. So this one I want to show you how to use elif. From the understanding, I told you what does elif does. Elif, it's also called an else if. It is a statement that checks additional condition if the first if is false. So for elif to run, if must be false. Let us see. So let me do a sample of a score. Let me ask for a user to input a score. So I'm going to assign a variable called score, and a score should be an integer because it's a value. So int, and because I require the user to input, I'm going to call my input function. Then after calling the input function, what follows? You must put in double quotes your question. What question do you require to put here? Enter your score. I give space for entering the score. And after doing that, because this is a question to ask the user to enter the score, now I want to run to test my elif function. So I'm going to start if that the user will enter is greater than or equal to 90. I put my colon, go to the next line. So if score is greater than or equal to 90, I want to print something. So I was admitting someone, sorry. So let me continue. So if score is greater than or equal to 90, I hope my laptop is not trying to misbehave. Okay. So if score is greater than or equal to 90, I want to print what? Grade A. Because I want to print, okay? Something like grade A. What is happening? Okay, let's continue. Grade A. Then because I've called my if. So if score will be greater than or equal to 90, it will print grade A. Otherwise, if the score, so here I'm going to test elif because I said elif will run if is false. So if this one is going to be false, if the score is not going to be greater than or equal to 90, I'm going to run my elif. Elif is not writing. Okay, let me see what's happening. Okay, it's good now. Elif, just elif score is what? Is greater than or equal to, let me say 75. Okay, put my colon, go to the next line. I want to print what? This should be in double quote because it is something I want to appear in my output. So I can test as many elif as possible. So another elif, sorry, should be small letters. So score is greater than or equal to, let me say 50. 50 should be a C. Put a column, go to the next line. I want to print grade C. should be grade C. Then I can now finish. Let me finish from now here. So anyone who scores anything less than 50 now, that person should be scoring a D. So for that one, I can use else. So else is going to run if the user has less marks than any that has been specified here, 90, 75, 50. All the tests are going to run. So if the user doesn't fall in any category, it's going to be an else. And else will be, you just say print grade F. Grade F, okay? So let me try to run this one and see what happens. So the first one, we shall start with a 90. Okay, enter your score. Then I can enter score like 90. Enter grade A, and it finishes. The code closes. But when I run again, and I put a score like, let me put something like 80, because 80 lies between greater than or equal to 75. Enter grade B. So it means my elif has skipped the if statement. The if statement has been skipped and the elif has been tested. So grade B. Okay, let us try to put another one. Let us try to run again. You can just run as many times as possible. Enter your score. Let's put a score less than 50. Let's put like 32. Enter grade F. So you can see how elif is working. Elif tests if this block of code is true. If it is not true, it goes and tests the other one. If this one is not true again, it tests the other one until it finds where the value that you've entered, and the value in this case is the score, because that is the variable we defined here. This is what we require the user to input. Okay, so you can see elif allows you to write more to specify more criteria. Okay, now that is if, and that was if and elif. I want us to, in fact, we've talked about if and elif. Else just comes if none of the conditions are true. For example, here, what is the role of else here? It has tested this one. This one was not true because this user has scored 32. This one was not true. This one was not true. This one was not true. So it tested and it ran this function over here. And that's why I told you the else statement runs if none of the conditions are true. Okay? So the other thing I want to show you, because when starting, I told you are going to look at the, let me go back here, control flow. We are supposed to look at if, elif, and else statement, relational and logical operators, for loops, and while loops. So let me start. Before I cover relational and logical operators, let me show you the difference of for and while loops and how they are so different from the if, elif, and else statement, even though they fall under the same topic of conditional statements, but I want to show you the difference. So I'm just going to create a new Python file here. As usual, the procedure is you just come here under your project name, you right click, and then you will see an option of new. It may not show your side because this is Google Meet, and sometimes Google Meet tend to limit how you use the pop-up windows. So let me call this one loops. So for loops, I want to show you something. I want you first to get to understand the meaning of loop. So the moment I put a hashtag, I'm commenting. I don't want that to affect my lines of code. So what are loops? And what does loops do? So the loops allows you to repeat a block of code multiple times. So it allows what? It allows repetition. And not just repetition, but repetition multiple. Then, what is the difference between the for loop and the while loop? What's the difference between the for loop and the while loop? Before we write any code under the for loop and the while loop, I want us to understand what the for loop does and what the while loop does. So the for loop, it usually iterates over a sequence. Okay? So what do I mean when I say it iterates over a sequence? Let me write it here. Iterates over a sequence. What do I mean when I say that? A sequence, what is a sequence? A sequence is like, let me say, a range of numbers. Okay, so the for loop will iterate. It will go through a range of numbers or a range of something, a list of something. Okay, It can be a range of numbers or a list. We are going to see it in an example. And now what does the while loop does? The while loop, it continues. That's what you're supposed to know. It continues running as long as the condition is true. Continues running. So it must test if the condition is true, then it continues to run. So it continues running as long as the condition is true. Okay? So remember, these ones are loops, and loops will, the definition of loop is repeating multiple times. So let me show you an example of, okay, let me start with a for loop. Get it in your mind that a for loop will iterate over a sequence, and a sequence, we've said it can be a list or a range of numbers. So let me hashtag, or let me comment to and say I want to deal with for loops. So for loops, let me give a range of numbers. Let me give a range of numbers from, let me say, 1 to 5. So for you to assign a range, you're going to say 4. Okay? You're going to use the 4. So I'm going to say for I in range. So range is a function by itself. You can see it is here. It displays automatically. I don't know if you can see it your side, but PyCharm as an IDE for Python programming tends to show a suggestion of what you want to write. So let me say for I in range, because I want a range of to loop between 1 to 5, I'm going to put 1 to 6. Okay, so when you put 1 to 6, it's going to loop from 1 to 5. Get that at the back of your mind. You're going to see what I mean. So where is the error coming from? I can see there's an error here. I'll just see it. Don't worry. So let me print. I want to print my result and see. So for you to print result, let me print, and then I'm going to call my iteration, because we said the for loop iterates over a sequence or a range of numbers. So I'm going to use the cat function. That is, I'm going to use the f. In the last class, there's a student who was talking about f. When you are dealing with printing the output in this window over here, where my cursor is rotating, where my mouse is rotating right now, there's a way you can do it, either using f, or f is usually, most people say cutting. Okay, so how do you use it? If you want to print, you just say f, then you open the double quotes. So in this case, what do I want to do? There's a function called iteration. I want to iterate because I'm using the for loop. So I want to iterate, and here I've already defined where I want to iterate is the I. Okay, so iteration, let me say I must put in the curly bracket. Is it called the curly bracket? The curly bracket are the box bracket, so it is not the curly bracket. The other brackets that appear to be like compressed, these ones. So I put there my I. I want to see where is this error coming from. Let me check my code for I in range 1 to 6. Okay, I've seen my error here. I'm supposed to pick, because I'm going to the next line of print and I'm using the loops. Here I'm supposed to put a colon. So let's see the results, what the results going to give us. Iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3, iteration 4, iteration 5. So remember here, we define for as an iteration over a sequence, and here our sequence, we've assigned it to an I, and we've assigned it to from 1 to 6, and I told you when you assign 1 to 6, it's going to run from 1 to 5. Then in the print, I've used the cat function using an f. I wanted it to give an output in what manner? Iteration, then I, iteration I, iteration I. So you can see the I, we already defined it here in this range 1 to 6. There's an I here. So it's picking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from 1 to 5. Okay. So you can see this is how the output will look like. So it iterates over a sequence that you've assigned to. So for you to see the difference, let me check the while. The while, I said it continues to run as long as the condition is true. Let us see how we can use the while. I just create a new file. Let me call it while. so that I want to separate, so that when I share this file with you guys while you're doing your practice, you can find it easy to do a follow-up. So the while loop, let me comment and say I want to deal with the while loop. No need to define it again because I already defined it. So it continues to run, and it continues to run until the function is true. So let me put a count of 0. I can assign a count to 0. Then I start with a while count. Remember, count is just a variable of a sign. While count is less than 5, while count is, why is my cursor? My cursor keeps on losing. While count is less than 5, I want it to print an output and tell me that the count is, it tells me the number of count. Okay, so how am I going to do that? Just like the other one, I'm going to use the cat function, that is f. So print f. So I want something like count is, then it gives me the count. So f, then I open my double bracket, I say count is, because this is what I want to appear. Then count is count, this count that I've defined here, like the way we defined I. So for you to call this count here, you must use the compressed bracket. I'm forgetting the name, but if you know it, you can update me. This is what I'm talking about. So here, I'm going to call my count. Okay, so otherwise, like if after checking this function, I want it to give me an output as well of count. Remember, count is still what we defined here. So I can say plus is equals to 1. What do I mean by this? Let me comment and explain to you guys. Plus is equals to 1. I am telling my while function, my while loop, to do what? To increase. Okay, so it's going to do an increment of count by 1. Okay, let's see what it does. I want us to see the output so we can get to explain what is happening. So can you see what is happening here? This is the same as because you can see the output count is, it is like here under the 4 iteration, it was like iteration 1, iteration 2. So you can see the same thing is happening here. Count is 1, or I can just for me to make sure that it's consistent and I'm not confusing you guys, let me remove the is. So you can see count 0, count 1, count 2, count 3, count 4, count 5, count 4. Why? Because I've initially said that count should be starting at 0. Okay guys, count is starting at 0. So remember the definition of while was it continues running as long as the condition is true. So how? Initially we've set our count to 0. And we've set a condition while count is less than 5. So when count is going to be 0, it is true. So it continues to run. It continues to run as long as the condition is true. Our condition is this one. I want you to get me right. This is our condition where we are defining. Let me comment and call this. This is our condition here. Count should be less than a number that is less than 5. Okay, and it's starting at 0. And we've said that the count should be increasing by 1. Let me try to challenge it and say count should be increasing by 2, then run. I want us to see what happens. You can see count 0 to 4. It cannot go to count 6. Why? Because 6, it's going to be above 5. Okay? Get this logic. The moment you are going to start to build programs, we shall need to use these loops. And I are going to see their importance. Okay. This one, Windows let me give it this is if elif. Let me give it a tick because we've checked it. Check. I'm going to be give it a tick. For loops, let me give it a tick, just a green tick. Then this is while loop. In fact, even I come up with a program that incorporates all of them. So the next thing, let us check nested loops, because we've been checking for loops, while loops. So let's check nested loops. Let us first deal with these loops. We get to understand what they entail. So I'll just come here under my project name. I create a new Python file. It's a pop-up window you cannot see, but you can see it in the video that I'll post immediately after this class. So new Python file, let me call it what? I've said we want to check on nested loops, okay? Nested underscore loops, enter. Okay, so let me allow you to create my first file. So let's do some definition. Maybe we get to understand what we want to do before just starting it. So anytime you hear about nested loops, the term nested, I don't know if you have people who are so good in grammar here, but for me, anytime I hear something, let me comment and say nested because I want to define it. Anytime I hear about nested, what always comes in my mind is within. Okay, this is what comes in my mind. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that the nested loops can be used within other loops. Okay, so here you can say you can use loops within loops or conditions within loops. This is a definition to create what? More complex logics. So if you want to create more complex logic, supposed to be very creative, come up with nested loops that are carrying loops inside them, and then you can call it a nested loop. Okay, so let me see. There an issue with me? Can you see my screen? Someone can write in the... I can see my screen disappeared. There must be an issue. Okay, just a minute, I solve this issue before we proceed. Mike, hebu angalia hiyo net.